Good evening. I call the Thursday, October 3rd, 2019 meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Johnson City to order. We have an exciting evening tonight, as we can see from so many people in the chamber, and we're so glad that so many citizens are here with us. This is going to be a historic night in some ways, so I hope everyone will listen really well as we go through some of our proclamations tonight. It's with honor that I introduce Reverend Tim Baumgartner, who is the Executive Director of Inter-Year Fellowship, to lead our invocation. All rise, please.
Let's pray together. Holy God, we come before you tonight in a spirit of love and unity, seeking a blessing for our leaders and community. Impart your wisdom upon our leaders as they seek to listen to the community, learn from its people, and work together for a common good. Give them insight to ask the right questions and the diligence to find the best answers. Remind us all what it means to serve and to love our neighbors. No matter where we live, everyone is our neighbor, and that throughout the ages, leaders are called to respect and protect the least of those among us, our children, the elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, those who have no homes, those who are ill in body, mind, or spirit, the strangers and immigrants in our midst, those who live on the margins, and those who are alone, and those who may be forgotten. Grant our leaders and us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May they and we speak up when it is time to speak up, and listen patiently and graciously when it is time to listen. May they and we always be guided by your great love. All this we pray in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please remain standing as the American Legion will present our colors and lead our pledge.
Colors, achi, boot, forward, hop. Colors, hop. Left, haste. It is permissible during the Pledge of Allegiance for all veterans to give unto the hand salute. All others, please place your right hand over your heart. Present arms. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, yeah. Order arms. Colors post.
Thank you. Be seated. Mr. Peterson?
Commissioners, your first order of business is consideration of the minutes from your meeting held on Thursday, September 19th.
Move for approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Any other comment on the minutes? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
At this time, we'll go into proclamations, the first being a presentation of a proclamation recognizing Johnson City Women's Suffrage Centennial Celebration. Mayor?
Commissioners and Mr. Peterson, Ms. Jennings, and to our audience who are with us tonight, we have been celebrating our 150th celebration in Johnson City. We're 150 years old. That's our sesquicentennial. And it's been a great year to really study our history and then pass our history on to future generations. There's another significant celebration that's coming up, and that's what our proclamation's about tonight, that 100 years ago on August 18th of 2020, we will be celebrating the women's right to vote, the passage of the 19th Amendment. To put it in perspective, the year I was born, women had only had the right to vote for 30 years. So being that after 150 years in the city of Johnson City and 79 mayors, I am the 6th mayor. And we have one of the other mayors, Mickey Carter, in the back of the room. Mayor Carter, welcome to the meeting tonight. So this next year will be a year of reflection, that we understand the importance of the passage of the 19th Amendment. It took 144 years after the passage of the Constitution for us to become a more perfect union and to truly become a democracy. But not all women, even with the 19th Amendment, were able to vote. In fact, women of color and other minority women, not until the mid-1980s, gained the right to vote. So we don't take this lightly. We need to teach our children, both boys and girls, of the significance of this moment and the celebration for 100 years for the right to vote. So it's with great pride, and you're going to be seeing some things throughout the year that's going to celebrate the women's right to vote. And so as mayor for this next year, it's a real honor for me to be able to share in those celebrations. So I believe we have some guests coming into the chamber. Well, Mrs. Catt, what brings you to Johnson City?
Mayor Brock, I'm just so happy to be here from the past. And I'm so happy that you are the present mayor of Johnson City. But let me introduce myself. I'm Carrie Chapman Catt. I am the chief, as they call me, of the National American Women's Suffrage Association. And I am in Nashville now, actually. You're just seeing me here, but it's a vision. I am in Nashville. I came here from New York because Tennessee, as you probably know, Mayor Brock, is the last chance for us to gain the right to vote for women. We've had 35 other states ratify the 19th Amendment, and we've gotten rejections from others, and Tennessee is our last chance. So to become the perfect 36th, we are here to really, really fight the antis and the people who do not want us in the ballot box. So that's why we're here.
Well, you brought some guests with you. Who might they be?
Well, there's a little story about the next guest here. She's wonderful to have with us finally. She's from the Alice Paul contingent of the suffragists. And they have been, picketing, protesting. They are somewhat pugnacious. And so we decided as a group to split our ways because several of us just wanted to go for state by state, before a ratification ever came up. But Alice Paul and her group said, no, we want a federal amendment, and that's what we're fighting for. So with us tonight is Sue Shelton White from Tennessee, and she is representing Alice Paul's National Woman's Party.
Hello, Mayor Brock, Mrs. Catt. I'm here from Knoxville with orders from Mrs. Paul in Washington, D.C. to do whatever it takes to win ratification in Tennessee.
Good.
We need to band together in order to defeat Mrs. Josephine Pearson and her team of antis. We're expecting a lot of trouble over the next few days, though.
Yes, we are, so we are prepared. And we also have Miss Frankie Pierce with us.
Hello, Mayor Brock, Mrs. Catt, Miss White. I've just recently addressed the Tennessee chapter, the newly chartered Tennessee chapter of the League of Women Voters, and I am here to ensure the right to the ballot box for people who look like me. We're all going to have to work together to make this happen, as for a few days, on the floor of the Senate, Tennessee legislators have a tie vote between those anti-red roses and those who wear the yellow rose in support of our cause. Thank you.
Well, I see you have a man with you. What's that all about?
Well, this man has been anti-suffrage. Let's let him speak for himself.
Well, unlike you, Mayor Brock, I'm up for re-election this fall in McMinn County. And most of my constituents are against suffrage, and thus far I've voted against it, like the rest of my party members. But suddenly, I found this here letter in my pocket from my mother.
Dear son, hurrah and vote for suffrage. Don't keep them in doubt. Be a good boy and help Mrs. Cat put the rat in ratification.
Mr. Speaker, on the question of ratification, I vote aye. I believe we had a moral and a legal right to ratify. I know a mother's advice is always safest for a son to follow. Lord knows my mother wanted me to vote for ratification. But I always believed in the inherent right of a woman to vote. It just made logical sense to me. I mean, my mother's a college woman, schooled in national and international affairs. Always took a keen interest in local issues, but she could not vote. Tenant farmers on our farm, most of whom was illiterate, they could vote. On this roll call, confronted with the fact that I was going down on the record for all time and eternity on the merits of this question, I had to vote for ratification.
Well, hasn't this been wonderful? And I want to recognize in the audience the other suffragists who are here. We have formed a Women's Coalition to plan the activities for next year, and they are here present supporting our folks up here with our little skit. With the 100th celebration, it's bringing a lot of line of sight to this young man. He was 24 years old. His name was Harry Byrne. And he cast the deciding vote that gave women the right to vote, and it was all in Tennessee. So Tennessee was a very, very significant state. So I'm very honored to read this proclamation. And by the way, had I been mayor before 1920, I could have been mayor, but I just couldn't have voted. So whereas the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote nationally on August 18, 1920, and whereas the constitutional amendment has been ratified by 35 states and could not become official until it had been certified by Congress, and whereas Tennessee became the battleground to ratify the amendment after 4 states refused to consider the resolution, and whereas a package of documents from the state of Tennessee arrived by train in Washington around 4 a.m., containing an official ratification document from the state legislature, making Tennessee the 36th state to ratify the amendment. And whereas Harry T. Byrne, a 24-year-old legislator, switched his vote on the Tennessee State House floor at the urging of this mother, Fed Byrne. And we understand the chamber went crazy when he did that. And whereas local organizations such as the Johnson City Suffrage Club and the Monday Club of Johnson City worked tirelessly in support of the amendment, and whereas the leadership of many Johnson City women such as Eliza Schott White and Alpha Richardson Sells was instrumental in the local struggle for ratification of the amendment. Now therefore I, Jenny L. Brock, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, do hereby proclaim August 18th, 2019 through August 18th, 2020 to be the Women's Suffrage Centennial Celebration, and invite all citizens to participate in suffrage events throughout the next year. 144 years after the signing of the Constitution, women finally gained the right to vote. Men and women alike should celebrate because the passage of the 19th Amendment on August 19th, 1920, the United States of America became a more perfect union. So ladies, I think y'all should take Mr. Byrne out for some beverages. And here's your proclamation. Thank you.
We have some roses for the commissioners. Yeah. Thank you, Harry. All right. vote for us.
Yeah, it's an easy call now.
Thank you for your support.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
And thank y'all, ladies. We appreciate you being here tonight.
Come on, girls, let's go on out.
And by the way, next August, we will have a replica of the Women's Suffrage March in Washington from 1919, I believe is when it was. Okay, thank you. 1913? Okay. Missed that one. Mr. Peterson.
Your next proclamation is recognizing Adverse Childhood Experiences Awareness Month. Ms. Haas?
Kristen, come on
Kristen,
up.
come up.
Lisa, come on up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see Lisa.
Yeah, she's sitting back there.
Yeah. We get to see Lisa a lot today.
Yeah,
This is
and
good.
Jill Stott, come on up. So where are your hats? That's a hard act to follow, isn't it? Yeah, just come on down this way. Well, thank y'all for coming. This is an important evening. I know you just had this done over in Bristol, and we're really glad and happy to do that. And I'm really happy to read this proclamation on the ACE Awareness Month. So I'm going to go ahead and read it, and then y'all can make some comments on that. Whereas a strong society depends on supporting the development of strong brains, health, and well-being of our children in order to create a foundation for lifelong healthy and responsible citizenship. And whereas adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are stressful or traumatic experiences that can disrupt the safe, stable, and nurturing environments children need to thrive, causing toxic stress affecting brain development and leading to a lifetime of physical, mental, economic, educational, and social challenges. And whereas ACEs have been linked to obesity, addiction, hypertension, and serious mental illness, and about 60% of adults in Tennessee report at least one ACE. And whereas the Sycamore Institute estimates the economic burden of ACEs to be $5.2 billion in direct medical cost and lost productivity from employees missing work in 2017. And whereas trauma-informed care is not a therapy or an intervention, but a principle-based cultural change process aimed at shifting a system or community's philosophy, policies, programs, and practices to be more empathetic and focused on promoting resiliency. And whereas adopting innovative, collaborative, trauma-informed approaches in workplaces, schools, communities, and governments can prevent or mitigate mental, emotional, physical, and/or social issues among those impacted by toxic stress. And whereas Johnson City has been instrumental in facilitating the regional conversation about adverse childhood experiences since 2015, and in creating a trauma-informed system of care now recognized by SAMHSA as a model for other cities to follow. And whereas the Johnson City Police Department, when Ms. Haas was here, and we miss you, in partnership with the Johnson City Schools, were first in the region to launch the Handle with Care program as an effort to reduce the effects of trauma for children who are justice involved. And whereas the Johnson City Board of Commissioners, along with partners Ballad Health, the Tennessee Commission of Children and Youth, and the United Way of Washington County encourages community leaders, business owners, pastors, educators, coaches, and the public to participate in upcoming educational opportunities. Now, therefore, I, Jenny L. Brock, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, do hereby recognize the month of October as ACE Awareness Month in Johnson City to raise awareness and to encourage all residents to become informed about the impact of ACEs and learn of the trauma-informed approaches that promote prevention, healing, and resiliency in children, adults, and communities in order to build a stronger and healthier Johnson City. Together as city leaders and community partners, this proclamation indicates our commitment to exploring new ways to make Johnson City a more resilient community for all its citizens. Wow. So we know the impact that what we are learning from the whole approach of trauma-informed care. So if y'all would just introduce yourselves, and Becky, if you could kind of give us a thumbnail sketch of what ACEs really mean so the rest of the public can understand. I'll start with you first, right there.
Oh, okay.
Then you can introduce.
Okay, Becky Haas, I'm the trauma-informed administrator, formerly a lot of fond memories of being at the city for 7 years. And so basically in the late 90s, 2 doctors did research, and they found out that the more adversity a child has without healthy support, that it is a predictor 100% of the time for future drug addiction and other life and health disparities. So by coming together as a community, we want to raise awareness to that. So they're gonna talk about some educational opportunities coming up, but to me, the best thing to describe trauma-informed care is a little story, and I want our city leaders to be aware of this because I sat in on many city council meetings working at the police, and with great angst sometimes there are tough decisions that have to be made. The biggest challenges of homelessness and addiction and prison overcrowding. And so a little story that kind of illustrates that is there was a man out fishing, and while he was fishing, he heard cries for help, and he looked around and he saw someone had fallen in the river and was drowning. So he dropped his fishing gear and he went out and swam out to where the drowning person was and pulled him to safety. About the time he pulled him to safety, he heard someone else is out there drowning. And you know, many of those in addictions, that's pretty much describes it. And the interventions are so costly. And so he did this for hour after hour, saving the drowning victims. And then finally, he asked someone up on the bank, can you go up and see why they're falling in? And someone went upstream and found out the bridge was out, and that's why they were falling in. And that is trauma-informed care. Though we're going to address addiction, though we're going to provide treatment, though we're going to provide medical services and programs for kids, this is an effort to swim upstream and try to keep kids from falling in to those ways by providing a more resilient community. Lisa Carter, my boss, and the president, the CEO of Niswonger Children's Hospital, and the vice president of Ballard Pediatric Services.
Thank you. So obviously as a children's hospital, we've recognized the importance of this. I'll share just a little story as well. I have heard a lot about trauma-informed care, certainly heard a lot about ACEs, but we actually had a situation that happened inside of our walls where we had a shooting threat within the building, and unfortunately, it was related to a little 2-year-old. And as I sat and listened to the mom talk about their life and what they went through on a daily basis, I was shocked, number one, at just the toxic stress that this child was exposed to. And then it hit me really hard, and I had to say, wow, if all we are doing as a hospital is providing care for medical conditions, then we're really missing a huge piece of our community and a huge piece of what's affecting these children's lives. So that really has been the impetus for a lot of stuff that we've been working on. Obviously, bringing Becky on board. Alan Levine, our system CEO, is very much engaged and involved in our efforts to help build resiliency throughout the communities, and then also doing our part with our own team members. You know, when you think of Ballard Health, there's, 15,000 plus team members. That can have a huge impact on this region if we can provide training and education, and people can address their own experiences and have a positive impact as it relates to coping. So those are some of the things we're working on throughout the health system. I commend Mayor Brock and the commission for recognizing these efforts, and certainly commend the city of Johnson City for being a leader in this, and certainly have been recognized throughout the state and in other areas of the country as leading a lot of these initiatives. So, to me, it is one of the things we recognize, that there is nothing more important than the work we're doing with this.
Good afternoon. My name is Kristen Spear, and I'm the president and CEO for United Way of Washington County, Tennessee. And so we have partnered with Ballard and with the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth to make ACEs Awareness Month a opportunity for our community to really understand what ACEs is and provide some educational opportunities for our community to become more resilient. So on October the 14th, that's a Monday, from 6 to 7:30 at Memorial Park Community Center, we're going to be showing a free screening of resilience so that you can see what other communities have done to build a resilient community. And then also on Tuesday, October the 22nd at Memorial Park Community Center, we're going to be providing a trauma-informed care / ACEs training So for those of you that want to find out more information about what this is and how this affects our community, those are just two of the upcoming opportunities that we're going to provide to make sure that we can start on the track to build a resilient community. And of course, we're always fighting for the health, education, and financial stability. And if you've got ACEs throughout the community, then those are hard to battle without a better understanding.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jill Stott. I am the Regional Coordinator for Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. We are a state agency that focuses on, our mission is to advocate for better outcomes for children and families. I cover the the 8 Northeast counties, and almost 4 years ago, Governor Haslam and his team recognized the need for this and initiated a plan called Building Strong Brains, and just the importance of building that brain strong early on so that they could be more resilient in life. So I am so thankful to the city of Johnson City, to each and every one of you all, for recognizing that need and being a leader, not just in Johnson City, but across our state. So this is something that has not been done in many places, so we're very grateful for you recognizing that and offering these opportunities.
Let me present the proclamation to you, and we thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
While Kristen's here, we have kicked off our United Way campaign here with the city. So if any of you commissioners would like to participate, we would welcome your participation with the city team. That do good?
Learned well from Wesley.
Okay.
Judge Green, thank you for coming for this. You should have come up with us here. But thank you. I know you're a big supporter of what's going on here. You work with our youth. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we're ready for...
Your next one is presentation of a proclamation recognizing the 100th anniversary of the Kings Mountain Post 24. Can I ask those gentlemen to come forward, please, and ladies.
Do you want to come up with them? We can probably find somebody to take some pictures if you want.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Let's see, right here behind you. He's going to take
He's
it.
one of the
There you
best.
go.
He's a professional.
There we go. Well, thank y'all so much for coming tonight and presenting our colors and the pledge. It made us a very special evening. So I'm very privileged to read this proclamation that says, whereas the American Legion was chartered by the U.S. Congress on September 15th, 1919, that was the year before the women got the right to vote, to foster a spirit of patriotism, devotion to duty, and true comradeship among its members. And whereas soldiers from Johnson City and Washington County returning from service during World War I gathered in the spring of 1919 to further the objectives of the American Legion. And whereas Dr. Henry M. Cass, the first post commander, and 26 other veterans formed Kings Mountain Post 24 in honor of those mountain men who defeated British forces at the Battle of Kings Mountain, a major victory during the American Revolutionary War. And whereas the Kings Mountain Post 24 was chartered by the American Legion on October 3rd, 1919, and whereas during these 100 years, Kings Mountain Post 24, under the leadership of 90 post commanders with over 8,000 members, has provided food, clothing, shelter, money, counseling to its members and other veterans in the Johnson City area, and provided support and service hours to the Mountain Home VA Center and the Mountain Home National Cemetery. And whereas in addition to providing support to our veterans, Kings Mountain Post 24 has sponsored youth sports programs, provided Thanksgiving dinner to the Boys and Girls Club, chartered Boys Scout Troop 237, hosted Memorial Day services, and supported various community charities. Now therefore I, Jenny L. Brock, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, do hereby recognize and proclaim October 3rd, 2019, Kings Mountain Post 24 Centennial in Johnson City, and urge all citizens to recognize this special day. So.
Just want to briefly thank the mayor for taking the time to include us in the program this evening. Briefly, on the 14th, it's like 2 weeks from now, on the 14th, we'll be having a grand dinner at the Carnegie Hall it's a celebration of our 100th year. And just also keep in mind that on the 9th of November, it's a Saturday, we'll be hosting our second Veterans Day Parade, and all the plans seem to be going pretty well, and we'll encourage the community to come out and take part in the parade, or at least be with us on the sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Y'all brought the parade back last year, and it was such a great day for Johnson City. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Mayor, your next proclamation is recognizing Poetry Awareness Month.
All right, come on up. I was going to write a poem tonight, gentlemen, but I didn't. Lucky you. How are you doing? I still have the chance. Well, as a part of our sesquicentennial celebration, this is one of the activities that is being brought forward for the benefit of the citizens of Johnson City. And so I'm really honored to read this proclamation. Whereas Poetry Awareness Day celebrates one of humanity's most treasured forms of cultural and linguistic expression and identity. And whereas poetry is among the oldest forms of literature and aims to express humankind's greatest hopes, fears, loves, and dreams. And whereas the Poetry Society of Tennessee Northeast strives to keep this beloved literary form alive. And whereas this organization is open to all and sponsors contests, readings, workshops, and other activities to help members improve their skills while enhancing the enjoyment of poetry. And whereas the Society is holding a sesquicentennial poetry contest that you're going to tell us about here in a minute to showcase our local talent as part of the celebration of Johnson City's founding 150 years ago. And whereas local students and adults are encouraged to submit poems about Johnson City during the month of October. And whereas the winner of the poetry contest will read their poems at a public recognition ceremony to be held in November. Now therefore I, Jenny L. Brock, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, do hereby declare October 3rd, 2019 as Johnson City Poetry Awareness Day, and further congratulate all participants in the sesquicentennial poetry contest and encourage our community to celebrate their efforts. So if you would tell everybody who you are and a little bit about the contest.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to accept this proclamation from you, Mayor Brock, today. My name is Rose Clicks, and I am the president of the Poetry Society of Northeast, Poetry Society of Tennessee Northeast. And we have been an organization here just about 10 years. We started in 2010. And I learned when I first came to Tennessee that there wasn't any poetry society affiliated with the state or the National Federation of State Poetry Societies, and so I asked if I could have a chapter here. And so the Poetry Society of Tennessee in Memphis has been in existence since 1953, so I think it was time. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do have copies of the rules for the contest. I do thank the city for partnering with us to do this, and I can leave some copies on the table out here.
That would be good, and I'm sure we could probably get it on the sesquicentennial website so people could go download it. It's there, okay. So I'm assuming the winner of this poetry contest, their poem will go in our time capsule that we bury on December 1st of this year. Thank you. Be good. And there's. Thank you very much, Rose.
At this time, we will present a proclamation recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Thank y'all for coming tonight. Thank you very much, and I'll let you introduce yourselves here in just a minute. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation, and then we can have a discussion about the Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity through systemic physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and/or economic control and abuse. And whereas the problems of domestic violence are not confined to any group of people, but cross all economic, racial, gender, educational, religious, and societal barriers. And the City of Johnson City is committed to help prevent domestic violence and address its brutal and destructive efforts. And whereas victims of violence should have access to medical and legal services, counseling, emergency and transitional housing, and other supportive services so that they can escape the cycle of abuse. And whereas important partnerships like the Johnson City, Washington County Family Justice Center have been formed among criminal justice agencies, healthcare providers, allied professionals, and victim services to assist victims of domestic violence and their families. And whereas it is important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide service to the victims of domestic violence and work to increase public understanding of this significant problem. Now, therefore, I, Jenny L. Brock, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, in conjunction with the National Network to End Domestic Violence and the Johnson City, Washington County Family Justice Center, do hereby designate October 2019 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Johnson City and urge all citizens to make a personal commitment to create a domestic violence-free community. So if you would introduce yourself and tell about your work.
Yes, hi, my name is Danielle Ostrander, and I am the director of the Johnson City, Washington County Family Justice Center. We are dedicated to serving domestic violence victims and sexual assault victims. Here with me today is Tina Johnson. She is the director of Safe House, so she is one of our partner agencies. We are basically one location where victims can come and receive services for counseling, emergency shelter, housing, advocacy, orders of protection, and other things that could help them through that very hard time of escaping domestic violence. So I just want to thank you and the Commission for recognizing October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'd also like to thank our partners as well as the Johnson City Police Department. They have been a huge help in establishing the Family Justice Center. And also, I just want to invite everybody, if you would like to take a tour of the Family Justice Center, please. Y'all are more than welcome to come. We happily accept new people to just come and take a tour and see what we do. Thank you.
And approximately how many people do you see a month?
Currently, it's about 30 people in person, but we receive between anywhere from 100 to 200 calls a month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope that's zero at some point in time.
We hope so too.
Thank y'all so
very
much.
We would now like to ask the recent graduates of JC 101 to come forward to receive their certificates of completion of the course.
JC 101 is our citizen awareness class. It's an 8-week course, and we spend 3 hours each week learning about a different department within the city. Our departments, it's a great opportunity for the staff to showcase the great work that they do, and I thank them for their participation in the nights they put together for this group. First and foremost, I thank all of you for being so interested and engaged in your community that you dedicated 2 months to learn more about it. They were a great group. We had a lot of fun, I think, and got to know one another, got to know about the city. They were actually so engaged and excited that we have added a 9th week now to JC 101. They demanded another class. So we had a geospatial segment and a library segment that I think we're going to make a permanent part of JC 101. So thank you all for that. Anne-Marie French, our public information specialist, led this group. She did a fantastic job coordinating them and serving as their hostess, so I'm going to let her help you present these certificates to them. And if you would call their names and if you would present their certificates and you all would stay in the middle for a photo from JT, that would be great. Thank you.
not everybody's here tonight. This actually represents about half of the class. So we did have a large group, and unfortunately, not everybody could be here tonight. But so let's see. So if you want to hold. So the first one is David Adams, Jackie Anderson, Alma Bobbitt. Oh, okay. Megna Divanji. Bridget Forrester. Katia Cavarina. Craig Lewis. Michaela Lewis. Monvipa Lin Swang Wong. Kathy Paris. Okay. Cindy Shade. Natalie Smith. And nope. And did I get everybody? Okay. And as I said, the rest of the group couldn't be here tonight.
Well, thank y'all so much for taking your time. Well, now 9 weeks, I guess you spent. I did get to spend the first session with you, and it was so enjoyable. And the questions, commissioners, were piercing, let's put it that way. I had to think on my feet really hard. But thank y'all so much. Since there's such a large group, is there one of you who'd like to speak on behalf of the class and just kind of say what your experiences were with it? Okay. All right. Cindy.
One of the things that we really enjoyed was that every department we visited, everybody loved their job. We could tell that they did. And we just learned so much, all of us did. And we got to be friends, and it was a great experience. And I would love to do it again sometime.
So here's the homework now. We have committees and commissions and all sorts of volunteer opportunities for our citizens. If you haven't been to the website already, make sure you do that to see what we have available, because we'd love to get you now in service. So y'all take a look at that, and when you decide to apply for something, let us know, let the commission know, or let Anne Marie or Keisha know that you're going to apply for something, so we can look for your application. But we thank y'all so much, and spread the good word. And thank you, Keisha and Anne Marie. I know it's been a great class. Commission, why don't y'all stand up in the back? Out of those, we're going to have one good one anyway. Thank y'all again. Thank you.
Commissioners, it's now your last opportunity to run.
Right. I've already grabbed them all.
At this time, we would like to present a proclamation recognizing American Pharmacist Month and the students that have come to join us this evening. We certainly appreciate their efforts and participation in our community.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a hands-on proclamation. So we're going to read the proclamation, and then your commission, Mr. Peterson, we're going to publicly take our flu shots. And we're going to encourage the whole community this year to take your flu shot, and we're going to try to set the example for the communities. So it's an honor to read the proclamation. Whereas pharmacy is one of the world's oldest health professions and is dedicated to the health and well-being of all people. And whereas America's more than 300,000 licensed pharmacists are specifically educated on medication therapy and trained as the members of the health care team that liaison between other healthcare providers and patients to improve medication use and outcomes. And whereas in addition to their expertise, pharmacists provide a high level of accessibility, particularly in the Southern Appalachian region, which has been served by the ETSU Bill Gatton College of Pharmacy since its establishment in 2005. Dr. Calhoun. And whereas the American Pharmacists Association has declared October American Pharmacists Month with the theme Easy to Reach, Easy to Help. Now therefore I, Jenny L. Brock, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, in conjunction with the nationwide observance, do hereby proclaim October of 2019 American Pharmacists Month in Johnson City and urge all citizens to acknowledge pharmacists for the safe and affordable pharmaceutical care, services, and products they provide, which include flu shots. Okay, so here's the interactive part. I will pass that on to you. Commissioners, if y'all would come down front, we're going to have our shots down here. And who's in charge?
Dr. Calhoun probably is, right?
This is Commissioner Kelly, that is Dr.
Yeah, there you go. Tonight, anyway. He can always pull right, so.
What's that?
We're gonna sit down.
Okay, all right. Whoever's going to give us a, y'all come on down. I'm sorry. I'm totally sorry. We've had so much. Everybody pay attention here real quick. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Brock. My name is Andrew Dickerson. I am a third-year student pharmacist at Bill Gatton College of Pharmacy. With me today, I have immunizing our commissioners and Mayor Miranda Green and Elliot Lee, also third-year student pharmacists, and Tate Messer, a second-year student pharmacist. We are here representing the American Pharmacist Association Academy of Student Pharmacists to really help promote the importance of the flu vaccine. Flu season is upon us. Flu season generally runs every year from October to March, and we are starting that season now, so it's really important to get your flu shot. The flu is very easy to be spread. It's spread from any watery, mucousy substances is what they're called, so that's things like coughing, sneezing, even sometimes talking if you just happen to be really close to a person. And also, people can spread the flu before they even have symptoms. They are already contagious. Some members of our community who are most at risk for getting the flu include children below the age of 5, especially those below the age of 2, senior citizens, pregnant women, as well as any patients who are immunocompromised. And the flu can have a wide range of symptoms, anything from a mild fever and a little bit of nausea to potentially putting you in the hospital. So we say it's really important to get your flu shots, and also it takes a couple of weeks before you get your shot, before you are fully protected. So it's really important that you get your shots now to help make sure that you are fully protected by the time we get to the peak of flu season. Thank you.
Very much. Come on over, Commissioner Wise.
This is the first time y'all have ever done this?
First time. Yeah. First ever.
First ever?
By the way,
That's what I was thinking.
we wore our Johnson City, and it should say go all out, so we're going to get like immunized all out, right? JT, be sure and get a picture, a nice picture here. That's all in our logo.
Should I steady you?
Would you hold on? Is it over yet?
Since I'm last, this is good. If y'all go down, I'm not going to have it. Hold his hand, Pete.
I bet he's done this time or two.
Okay, tell me when she gets ready to do it, okay? Now?
Yes. About to do it. I wanted to Paw Patrol.
Next time.
Do you prefer right away? This one shoot my left arm. So, getting one this early, probably should get another one in the spring sometime.
No, you will be covered throughout the entire flu season.
Okay. Yeah.
I will.
Now, do y'all do pneumonia and?
What is the machine up in? Stick it on your ears.
Thank you.
Janet, you gonna?
Appreciate you.
It's okay.
I'm just sitting staff. John, you're not afraid of needles, are you?
I'll look the other way.
Shingles, shingles, that's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah, I've had mine.
Next up.
Because I know
The insurance won't cover him until you're certain.
60.
We're safe.
Go give him a shot.
Almost.
Dodgeball.
You'll be 60 this
No,
year?
don't rush it. I'll be 59.
You'll be 59 this year, okay.
Yeah, I was born in 60.
So you're the same age as my sister.
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason I had you a year older than what you were.
Don't rush it.
It was your, wise advisement.
I guess doing it on TV, their professors can watch their technique and.
There's got to be some kind of credit for this.
Yeah. All right.
I tell you what, I wish they could draw blood and be that painless. That was good.
Is it a Walgreens? Yeah. Somebody started sneezing. Uh-oh.
It looks like I've been in a car wreck. I mean, it ain't really.
Completed the set. Band-aid to go, we're done. They got mine. If you don't know the way.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Appreciate
And
it.
one other picture, so y'all just stand up in the back.
We'll do it. We'll go get it, we'll get the city van. Come on over. We're gonna do some sitters and some standers. Sitters and standers.
Hang on, we got a couple more.
I was looking away. Do it again, we were all looking away.
Looking away.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all very, very much.
Good luck at school.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, we're about to start. It's also live streamed on YouTube, so you could watch it. Just go watch it home.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
All right, this takes us to the portion of your agenda where you make appointments. The first listed on your agenda is an appointment to the Johnson City Library Board. Commissioner Hunter?
Mayor, I would ask that we defer this to the next meeting to give me some time.
Right, we do have to figure this out. It needs to be a commissioner serving on that board, we think. We might be able to do a designee. We're not quite, you can do a designee. Okay. We'll be prepared for next time.
Need some time to talk to some people.
Okay, sounds good. Do we need a motion on that for deferral? Okay, is that in form of a motion?
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Your next appointment is to make one appointment to the Bright Ridge Board of Directors. Currently, Mayor Brock serves in that role, and she is eligible for reappointment.
I'd move she be reappointed. Second.
Any other questions or comments on that? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
And I'll vote yes.
Next order of business is to make one appointment to the Martin Center Advisory Committee. This is the ETSU Fine and Performing Arts Center. As you will recall, as a part of our contribution to that facility, we have membership on that advisory committee currently. Preston is serving on that role, and it has been brought forward that Ms. Turpin from the library has also expressed interest in serving on that board, if that's your pleasure.
And I have spoken with Julia Turpin, and she would be very privileged to serve on that board. I think she would be great and bring a lot to it. So I will just enter that in the form of a nomination, even though the mayor doesn't usually do that. Okay. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
This takes you to street closures. The first being a request for the Music for All, making a street closure request to accommodate the Bands of America Championships to be held on October the 12th, 2019. This will close a portion of the State of Franklin Road there in the general vicinity of the Mini Dome. There are the appropriate reviews having been made. The recommendation would be for your approval.
And I did speak with Brenda Whitson this afternoon, told her there was really no need for her to come. We did this last year, and it's not really, it's just closing one lane on State of Franklin. That's correct, Mr. Peterson?
That is correct. This will just be one lane of State of Franklin. The only note that I got was that by doing this, it will make some accessible parking spots immediately adjacent to the Mini Dome unavailable, but there are other accessible spots on campus, so that doesn't create us any problems.
This is basically to allow them a place to drop off instruments and
The load and unload into the
loading
event.
and
Yes,
unloading
ma'am.
more than anything. Okay. Is there a motion?
Move for approval. Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes, and Vice Mayor, you may know a little bit more about this. I think we're going to have how many bands coming here? It's a lot, like 5,000 people in town during this event. So very significant. 2 local ones, but most of them are from out of state.
I know Science Hill has to be there.
Yeah, okay.
That's the extent of my band knowledge
However-
as it relates to
However many
this.
people they're bringing, so.
But it's a lot of
gonna be
bands.
A lot of bands.
Good for the city as well. Okay?
Next is a request from Kings Mountain Post 24 to accommodate their Veterans Parade be held on Saturday, November the 9th. This involves basically the route of the Christmas parade. We have reviewed it, find no problems, and strongly recommend approval of the request.
Move approval. Second.
Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. And if someone wants to be in the parade, who do they get in touch with?
They can call to the American Legion itself,
Okay,
and I will send them the information.
okay. So call the American Legion and can get an application form, I guess, and get all the information about it. So we'd like to see a really big parade. Thank you.
Next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
Commissioners, is there anything you would like to pull? Commissioner Calhoun?
Were we going to pull the procurement policy and procedure?
Yeah, I
For
think
discussion.
since there was a change there at the very end.
Okay, then that would be A4.
A4, Commissioner Hunter,
That's where I was gonna go as well.
Commissioner Fowler, Vice Mayor?
Same thing here.
Okay, and I would like to pull just, that won't take long at all, just D1, the number of buses, and just want to let the community know our replacement buses. Okay, A4.
Debbie, could I get you to come up and explain this, please, ma'am?
Not Bob, Debbie. We want Bob.
I saw you getting all excited over there, wanting Bob to do it.
Thank you. Sorry about the revision. After we had the meeting Monday night, I was going back through the wording when we were discussing possibly increasing the level, and I actually had that addressed where it would have been very limiting wording. So I just removed that and just put out the required approvals, and that's really all I did. Implement it where it was a very generic wording.
Just in summary, Ms. Dillon, this new purchasing policy is really comprehensively covering all of our purchasing requirements, specifications, everything like that.
It is pretty much an SOP for the city, users, everyone. Yes, it clearly defines a lot of the process, the procedures, why we're doing what we're doing, who has what authority level. So it's really a very good guidance as well. Yes, and it brings us up to date with the electronic, bidding and formats that we have now, yes. The present one we have is 26 years old, so
Okay.
yes,
Good
it
point.
needed revising really bad.
I can tell you've put a lot of work in this. I'm
Yes,
sure
a
our
lot of
auditors
people
like
have,
this.
very much a lot of people. So thank you for considering.
Any other questions on the, okay, be good, thank you.
Thank you.
The other one is D1. Just how many buses, Mr. Peterson, are we ordering? And
Okay, just a second. Okay, what we are buying with this purchase is 30 passenger and 12 passenger school buses. We have in round numbers, 70-some total school buses, and some of those are 72 passenger buses. Those are the large ones that people are usually accustomed to seeing. What we're buying this evening are the smaller buses that are lift-equipped, some of them, and some of them are just used to go places where we can't get a big bus into the neighborhood due to turnarounds and those types of things. So we're buying 4 of the 30-passenger buses, and we're buying 2 of the 12-passenger buses with the lifts. This is based on a purchase order that we did several years ago. This reflects a 2.8% price increase on the 30-passenger buses and an 11.7% increase since 2015 on the 12-passenger buses. So over 4 years, that's about a 3% increase on one bus, and about 2.8 is about 3% increase on the other one on an annual basis. So these are very good bids, and it's equipment that the state of Tennessee has a longevity schedule for school buses. And these small buses, Debbie, are over 12 years, I think, that the small buses have to be rotated out regardless of condition or mileage. And the big buses are every 15 years regardless of mileage or condition.
For the scouts that are here with us, they might be interested to know that to buy 6 school buses today is costing the city $380,000. And so, Mr. City Manager, the big buses, the 72 passenger, just for the benefit of the students who may ride in those buses, what does one of those 72 passenger buses cost?
Would one of you gentlemen like to make a guess as to what one of the big school buses cost if these are costing about $65,000 apiece?
And they seat 60 or 70
The
students.
big buses seat 72 people. Boy, you're
Charlie
in the
told
mud.
you. Charlie, you cheat.
They're actually somewhere between
The man in front of
$95,000 and
you.
$100,000. Yes, sir. That was a
That's a
great
good guess.
So next time you get to drive the bus, yeah. So,
There's good
Mr. Peterson.
benefits.
yeah.
And a fire truck is even more.
Oh,
But
boy,
anyway.
is it ever. One of the things, just for the public to know, that we have a very unique arrangement with our Johnson City schools, that the city actually provides all the transportation. Most school systems have to run their own transportation system, hire their own bus drivers, and buy their own buses. But this is one of the things the city does for our school system, and we spend annually about $2.4 million to run the school transit system. That way, we feel that our leaders in the school systems can spend their time on what they are best at, and that's educating our students. And so, Mr. Peterson, we have an incredible transit department, and we're very fortunate to be able to run just I think probably a best practice transit system, so we're glad about that.
And can I add one thing to that?
Mhm.
We, in addition to that $2+ million a year, we spend almost $1 million a year buying school buses.
Yep.
School transportation is, everything we do is important, but school transportation is probably definitely in the top 3 in terms of importance and making sure that we have 101% performance delivery every day. I mean, we transport between the morning run and the evening run, we transport over 6,000 children. Now, it's not 6,000 individual children, but cumulatively, over 6,000 children a day, and our buses travel somewhere in the vicinity of about 500,000 miles a year. Our garage maintains all of our vehicles. We have been over 20 consecutive years with perfect safety inspections by the state of Tennessee. We have a lot to be proud of with our school transportation system and all the work that they and the mechanics both provide us. It's a phenomenal operation. And it's one of those miracles for which I am thankful every day, that we have people that will come in at 5:30 and drive a school bus for a couple hours and then come back at 2 o'clock and do it again. Sometimes you have a good experience in the morning. Sometimes I'm sure they question why they are coming back at 2 p.m. to do it again, but
And
we're proud of them.
most of them are on that school bus by themselves with 72 students, right?
Is it always quiet on the bus and everybody sitting in their seat? That's what my son says. In the morning, it's quiet. In the afternoon, it gets a little rowdier.
So, Mr. Peterson, we've done just about everything else tonight, so why don't we give the scouts an opportunity to guess how much of our biggest fire engine cost? You want to give them the real price on that?
Charlie, you want to help him out a little bit? The ones
Well, your big
with
ladder
the big ladders on them are just a little bit higher than $1 million a truck. And the ones the other trucks, the smaller ones that have you see the hose on top of them, those are about $500,000 a piece. And we've got 9 of the smaller ones, the pumpers, and we've got 3 ladder trucks, and then we've got a number of smaller trucks than that. So there's about $10 million worth of fire trucks that we keep rolling all the time.
So we are grateful for the citizens to pay their taxes, for sure. That's the only way we can buy them. So, is there a motion to pass the consent agenda?
Move for approval? Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
next item for consideration is ordinance number 4705-19. An ordinance to amend section 7.1.3.4 on minimum standards and conformance for sign setbacks and section 7.3.4.2 on permitted signs for non-residential uses of the zoning code of the city of Johnson City is ready for your consideration on second reading and public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ryder.
Mayor, Commissioners, before you is a staff-initiated request to amend the sign regulations of the Johnson City zoning ordinance. There are three purposes for these proposed changes. One is to eliminate several discrepancies found within the text itself. Two is to provide uniformity, consistency with other sections of the zoning ordinance. And the third is that we believe the proposed changes should enable businesses to have more visibility with their advertising without negatively affecting the aesthetic natures of our commercial corridors. The first issue would be to eliminate all erroneous references to the B3 zoning district found in section 7.3.4 of the zoning ordinance. If I can call your attention to this slide, section 7.3.3 contains the sign requirements in the B2 and the B3 zoning districts. 7.3.4 pertains to the sign requirements in the B4, B5, I1, I2, BP, and PB districts. These are excerpts from the zoning ordinance. You can see in section 7.3.4 under this heading, the very next line has a reference to the B3 zoning district, and there are several other references to the B3 in that section as well. That's incorrect. All these requirements for the B3 are found in section 7.3.3. The proposed change would eliminate all of those discrepancies. This is a slide that shows several different types of signs found in the city. On the left, I'm sure you're all familiar with these types of signs. On the left, we have the monument signs, two different types. In the B4, B5, I1, I2, BP, and PB districts, those can be 10 feet in height. They must touch the ground at all points along the base. So these are monument signs. We have freestanding signs, two different types. This is a two-column tenant panel and a pole sign. And we have the projecting signs, which you typically see downtown. These are signs that are mounted perpendicular to the building facades. Currently, the code allows for businesses in the B4, B5, I1, I2, PB, and BP districts to have ground-mounted signs or freestanding signs or projecting signs. To encourage the use of ground-mounted signs, we're proposing a change that would allow those businesses that choose to have a ground-mounted sign instead of a freestanding sign to have an additional sign, to have a projecting sign as well. And then the third proposed change would be to reduce the minimum setback of the following types of signs. Freestanding signs, except for those found in the B2, construction signs, directory signs, and ground-mounted signs, reducing the setback from 10 feet to 7.5 feet. This will provide consistency with other sections of the code. It'll make it the same as the 7.5-foot drainage and utility easement. Typically, applicants, when they apply for sign permits, oftentimes they believe that the setback, that their property lines mirror or align with the road or the sidewalk. These are a couple examples of properties in town where we can see that that's not the case. And you see the property line is actually set quite a bit further from the edge of the sidewalk. Then we require an additional 10 feet, which hinders their ability to get visibility from the road. So we're proposing to reduce it to 2.5 feet to 7.5 feet. Should give them greater visibility without negatively affecting the aesthetic nature of the corridor. And I've spoken with the town or the city engineer, and he has stated that this should not affect have any effect on underground utilities by reducing the setback to 7.5 feet. I would note that this does not trump the site vision triangle at corner lots where they put signs at the corner of streets. That'll still be based off of a 10-foot setback. And it is August 6, 2019 meeting, the Planning Commission unanimously approved these changes.
I just have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On Unaka and Watauga, which are residential and business, and I forget the zoning there, but,
I think it's R01, I
okay.
think.
All of a sudden, I'm seeing a couple signs that are lighted signs. So we allow a lighted sign in that kind of neighborhood? I mean, if you've got a resident next door, you don't have to answer, you can let me know later, but I just, have noticed two that have popped up on Watauga in the last 2 months, actually.
Internally illuminated signs are allowed in an R01. And I guess the one that you're noticing is the new medical offices there at Judge Underwood's.
There's one on down
courthouse.
too as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. Commissioners? Any other questions of staff? Do we have public hearing, Mr.?
Yes,
Yes, we
ma'am.
do. Okay. I will open the public hearing on the second reading of ordinance 4705-19. Is there anyone here to speak for or against? Oh, come forward and state your name and address.
Shane Abraham, 400 Heatherview Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to just say a couple of words. I just wanted to briefly say that we've had the opportunity to review these amendments with planning staff, and we're greatly in support. We've had a few different applications that these would greatly affect and that we think would make better projects, and so we're definitely in support of them. I know there's some other side ordinances and changes and things we're looking at, and we think this is a step in the right direction, so we just wanted to be able to say that we're in support of them.
Very good. Thank you for working with staff to, I think we get a better product when we get
Absolutely. Communication key.
a lot of input.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Okay.
coming and saying that.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak for or against? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing.
Move for approval. Second.
All right, any other discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor, at this time, we will have a presentation on the pilot report from the Northeast Tennessee Regional Economic Partnership. Alicia? Ms. Summers, please.
Thank you all for having me here tonight. I'm here on behalf of the Johnson City Industrial Development Board. So just to remind everybody about pilots, so they're created by state legislation, and it's TCA Title VII, Chapter 53 that allows the IDBs to reduce or discount or freeze taxes for up to 20 years. And it's a common practice. It's a tool used by communities across the state for projects. And it's used a lot to win a project or close a deal. And you're going to hear some of these terms throughout this presentation. So when I say recruitment, what I mean is a new industry, and that typically means new jobs and new capital investment. It's typically brought to us by ECD or by TVA. And retention is an existing industry. Those companies that are sometimes at risk, we want to help them retain their current jobs, and most often those are identified locally. And then expansion, an existing industry that experiences growth. So typically that's bricks and mortar or new equipment, new product lines. It involves new jobs, new CapEx, and that too is most often identified from a local level. When we're evaluating new projects for pilots, for potential projects, we look at a variety of different factors, including the benefit they'll bring to the city and the county. Will it bring growth and opportunity? The number of new jobs that are created, the wages, will it help move the needle above the median income, the capital investment over 5 years, and then the availability of our workforce. And then one thing to remember is that each pilot has a remedy for non-performance. And they all have pilot reporting requirements. Some are different. Most often, none of those are the same. Each one of the reports requires that they're reviewed by a CPA, third-party auditor, a company officer. They sign off on those, and then in addition, they're reviewed by the Industrial Development Board, the IDB attorney, and the state comptroller. So let's dig into the pilots that we have currently. And this report is as of June 30th. So we have an ongoing pilot with NN. That company is currently in non-compliance, and that pilot is exclusive to the Johnson City Industrial Development Board. And I say that because some of our pilots, we have a different partner on those as well. The Silverdale and Lab Connect pilot, they are in compliance. This past year, they reported 46 new jobs. They've already reached their performance goals, although they're only in year 3.
Back up to NN, when you say non-compliance, just tell us how we then finish this pilot, what's going to be happening.
So the IDB is working with the attorneys on a assignment and assumption of the pilot agreement with a project with Crown Laboratories. And then LPI, I know they've been in the news recently. I hope you all are following this. LPI, we did a pilot with them that started in 2017. They added 137 jobs in just their first year. They had projected over 5 years, 290 jobs. This year, they reported an additional 20. This pilot, again, is through the exclusive to the Johnson City Industrial Development Board, and this was a competitive recruitment project. So what they did was purchase 300,000 square feet of vacant industrial space, and then ramped up to full production in 2016. And then the latest update is they've purchased an additional 126,000 square feet to move their warehousing and inventory to. I believe they're closing on that building tomorrow. So they're a really good example of a successful pilot. And then Mullican Flooring, that's an expansion project. That was a joint agreement between the Washington County Industrial Development Board and the City Industrial Development Board. They are in year 2 of their reporting. We started that pilot in 2017, and they're in compliance. And then just to touch on the performance requirement again, is that each of these companies are required to report to us annually. Those documents are reviewed by not just the IDB attorney, but also the county attorney. And so they're checked for compliance. There's also written within the performance requirement is that those companies have to perform to up to 80 or up to 80, at least 80% of their projected job numbers. And this is just a sample of what those pilot reports look like. And then one other thing, we have an MOU with the city that began in November of 2014 between the city and the Industrial Development Board in order for us to do pilots that fall within those guidelines. So each year, the MOU allows for a reevaluation of the agreement, and we'd like to request the reauthorization of the IDB to enter into pilot agreements that fall within those guidelines. Is there any questions?
Peterson, will that come back to us for a vote, or? Go ahead and say that again, Alicia.
The reauthorization of the IDB to do pilots that fall within those guidelines of the capital investment program.
Will that come formally back to us at the next meeting?
We've got a couple of things that Alicia and I are working on that will need to come back to you all for review and approval. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any questions, Ms. Summers? How's business?
Hey, we're busy.
Okay.
We're really busy. And I will say that I spoke with Joe Cronin, the CFO at LPI this morning, and they are extremely thankful to the city and the Industrial Development Board for all that they've done to help them move to this point. And they're just thrilled to be here. They're happy with the workforce. They're thrilled to be opening up some extra floor space. I know that you were out there on a tour not that long ago and could see how tight they were. So this is really going to help them amp up their production.
And thank you for arranging those tours. We've been to TPI, we've been to LPI, and this morning we were at A.O. Smith.
Right.
And, you know, we have some significant and well-run manufacturing businesses here in Johnson City, which has been great to see.
And you know, October is Manufacturing Month,
Yep.
and just you mentioned about A.O. Smith, and they have been a big proponent, obviously, of Manufacturing Month for a lot of years. I know yesterday they hosted a lot of students that
They
came
hosted
through.
us today.
They
We were
hosted,
there, yeah.
they hosted you all today, so they're a
That's
great
great.
partner, great community partner.
6,500 water heaters a day. Getting out of there.
Not hot water heaters,
Yeah.
water
Just water
heaters.
Yeah, if you happen to have one in your house, most likely it was made by that company.
Or at least some of the components.
Yeah.
Yeah, we learned a lot. It was a great
Yeah.
tour, so any others you can set up like that would be great.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good.
Thank you
so
all.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, this takes us to the public input portion of your agenda.
Okay, we had one request, but as we note on the form, I believe the date is wrong, that the applicant,
Yeah, she indicates that she would be speaking at a meeting on Friday, October the 4th.
Perhaps she thought your meeting would run long this evening.
it's not going to.
I have sat through many of those meetings.
All right.
But we're going to open it in case.
Well, had she been here, we certainly would have heard her, so is there any other visitor who would like to speak to the commission? We'll go ahead and take that. Okay, all right, we'll close
Well, I
public
think
input.
Oscar might- Is Oscar coming to say?
Do you want to say something? Yeah, come on up. Want to give us your name?
My name is Oscar Baumgartner,
Okay.
and so the Johnson City Cinder sign, with it's the Hobby Lobby and At Home.
Uh-huh.
If you go on a little certain road that's near Best Buy, the Johnson City Cinder sign looks a little bit crooked.
Ah.
I've noticed several of the signs out there looking like they would benefit from some attention. Not there specifically, but like the
think-
Lowe's sign is covered in vines.
Is that sign kind of mounted where it slopes down?
Yeah.
It might appear to be crooked because it's got some slope underneath it. Sometimes it's an illusion, but,
I'll go check it out.
Check it
Yeah, we
out.
will.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
and you know, the city
They make
doesn't.
those here in Johnson
Yes,
City.
the city doesn't install the signs. It's the business owner who puts their own signs up to our regulations. So they have to install them according to our sign policies and procedures. But they pay for their signs and they install their signs. But I'll look at it the next time I go out there. Good observation.
Thank
And maybe we can put more land under it so it doesn't
There you
look
go.
more
So
crooked.
it may just be an illusion.
Mayor, may I ask him a question?
Yes, sir. Come on back up,
Oscar.
Oscar.
If I may ask you a question, please, sir. What would you and your friends like to see us do to make Johnson City a better place to live and play? Trails, parks, new schools, anything you can think of. This is a blank piece of paper and you can say
Wow.
anything you want to.
I don't really know.
Okay, would you do me a favor? Would you and some of your friends think about that and talk about it a little bit? And you and I can maybe get together sometime later and sit down and talk about what your friends and people your age would like to see different about
Good,
Johnson
good,
City
good
to make
to
this a different place.
Okay.
Okay, I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much. Thank y'all for coming tonight, too. All right. Okay, is that the end of our agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
So Commissioners, this is usually the week that we just give any updates on the committees we serve on. Anything from the Planning Commission?
No, we're right on track. We got a meeting Tuesday, I think there's like 8 issues to be brought forth on Tuesday. I will mention, though, that I've gotten the first report from the College of Pharmacy on immunizations, vaccines, those kind of things, and the public health class is working on some information. So we still are on track for sometime, probably near the end of the year or the first of the next calendar year, to bring back some information for the commission to look at relative to vaccines.
Commissioner Hunter?
No, there's no updates from any of the committees I'm on.
You okay? Mr. Fowler?
CVB, the Harley group really enjoyed their time here and planning on coming back, which is good news. And we did a nice commercial to try and recruit USA softball to come today, and hopefully that will maybe
I
encourage
kind of
them.
missed the rumble of the Harleys. I've kind of gotten used to hearing it.
Yeah, September was motorcycle month.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was, but everything was very successful that they did, and they were all very happy with it. So we'll probably be having them come back next year.
We've had a lot of people in town, and just to add to that, the Tennessee State Women's Republicans having their convention here at the Carnegie, 17th and 18th of this month. Yeah, and I think Commissioner Hunter will be there to read proclamation. It's going to be a joint proclamation that's being worked on from Jonesboro, Washington County, Johnson City all together. And I want to thank Sherry. She's kind of pulled that together, and we'll get all 3 seals and the mayor's signature on that.
See, we really do work together.
That's right. I know it.
I mean, it's a myth thinking that we don't work together. We
So
really do.
there are over 200 women who have registered for it, so they'll be bringing families too. So that'll be a nice group of people in town. So anyway, Commissioner Fowler, where you got you, Vice Mayor.
JCDA closed on the Severe Center 2 weeks, roughly in the last several weeks, and so that brings a new chapter to that. Their next meeting is a week from tomorrow, so it'll be the first post-closing meeting of the JCDA. I anticipate hearing some from them.
Anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to, we have had some conversations in agenda review relative to the committee appointments, and we just had the JC 101 group here, and it struck me that there would be real value in having a conversation about how we do the appointments, so that what I see is we'll get an application from somebody who's decided they want to apply to serve on fill in the blank, the planning commission or the BZA, and we don't have a vacancy to put them in, or we have too many really good candidates. And I would like to see us move in a direction of a more open-ended application where the applicant says, marks 6 or 8 different boards or commissions that they might be willing to serve on, so that we could take a broader view rather than, well, at this meeting, we've got 2 appointments to the JCDA. We could, and then the next month, a totally different list, and it's always changing. That would allow us to know the totality of who the applicant pool is, and then I think allocate those a little more efficiently, which would then come to a suggestion that Commissioner Hunter has made, that we look at those appointments perhaps in planned intervals. So maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's a couple times a year. Even if it were every other month, it would condense those into a single meeting, and I think would lead us to better candidates and more options when it's time to appoint. So that was one of 2 things that I wanted to raise for conversation.
I think it's a great idea that if we can get, put out calls for applications, and they can check off 2 or 3 committees or commissions they may be interested in, and that we can get people positioned and placed a little bit better than what we've been doing in the past.
I've noticed several people who've applied a time or 2, and they've often applied where there's a reappointment likely, and so there may be 2 or 3 seats being appointed, but they may already have people who are serving ably and are, eligible for reappointment. Well, that's going to probably be what happens.
So how do we move forward, Mr. Peterson, to get, all this procedurally laid out and advertised and have the right forms. The form is going to have to be changed somewhat, so.
The forms will need to be changed. We'll need to contact all of the boards. I mean, some of their bylaws, some of the board's bylaws are laid out that appointments, for example, I think Parks and Rec call for the appointments to be made in July. And some of the others are laid out with a certain time, so we'll need to coordinate with those boards and explain to them that some of their current members' terms are going to be extended by whatever time period to get it in sync with what you all are describing. And as we've talked before, I think you're wanting to do appointments the first and third quarters of the year, and those would be the only 2 times of the year that appointments would be made, with one exception, and that would be after each municipal election. The commission needs to reorganize themselves and make commission appointments to boards, but that doesn't impact anybody in the general public. So we'll get started. Charlie, you're usually real good at this process stuff. If I can get you to get with Sherry and let's get a process laid out and make contact with all those boards.
And it may be, like, if Parks and Rec is in July, well, that's getting into the third quarter.
Parks and Rec
I mean,
won't be a problem. That was probably not a good
we could get
example.
it to line up. It
Yes.
might be helpful just to list them all out and figure out when they think we appoint. It may reflect no meaningful change to them if the dates line up.
Sure. Yes, sir.
And maybe by year end, we've got the process ready to roll out. And
Are you all agreeable to us notifying anybody that may come forward with a need for a board appointment between now and December, to tell them that we're not going to make the appointment until sometime in the first quarter? Because I can't say with absolute certainty all boards, but a lot of those appointments are for a term or until replaced is the verbiage in it. So you could extend a term fairly easily, and that would start getting us lined up to make those appointments first quarter. If you all are amenable to that, then we'll just advise anybody that comes forward with the need for an appointment that it will not happen until the first quarter of 20.
we may have some that step down, but looking at the work of the board until, the first quarter, if there's not going to be a lot of activity, that it can probably just remain vacant.
And the other thing that I think becomes true in consolidating these appointments, it creates an opportunity for a greater public information push, recruiting the volunteers, because now you're not recruiting somebody to apply to be on the senior center board. You're applying people to serve the community on boards and commissions. And I think that's a little bit more attention grabbing and may bulk up the pools.
Do you have another?
I do. The other item, and we talked about this at agenda review, but I just wanted to put this out there, and I sent an email to this effect, is really calling on a meeting with the builder-developer community and the internal stakeholders here at the city that they interface with, to just a round table to kind of figure out, what do we do well, what could we do better, what do we do that you like better than what they do in some other municipality, what don't you like about what we do, and really kind of get to the root of questions that are out there to just make sure we're doing everything we can as a city to live up to go all out. And so, that's the spirit in which that's offered. And
How would you suggest, Mr. Peterson, that we, you don't want a room of 100, you need to have how we invite a cross-section, in our community, that we can get the best kind of feedback and input. So if you can think about how and who, and maybe you have some ideas, Vice Mayor, how do you think we make those selections, and when would you like to see that occur?
I think sooner rather than later. If there's something to be known, better to know it early. I guess my thought is, it might be like we did with the Sesquicentennial Committee or Commission. Perhaps each commissioner identifies a couple of people because, we know who we hear from. And then I think in consultation with staff, staff may have some people that you think, well, they're interacting a lot with all the different facets. Because what we're talking about isn't just building inspections, we're talking about water, sewer, and there's a whole bunch of other interfaces that occur.
Fire. Okay, well, how about for the next meeting, everybody come with 2 recommendations? And, what's that?
Including Pete. Yeah,
Mhm.
or maybe
Yes,
some from the
definitely.
planning or whatever department. And I don't think Pete necessarily has to be limited to 2. We don't want to
Thank
probably
you.
get more than.
10 or 12 won't be enough. We probably need to talk to 20 or 30 people. Now,
Right.
they all don't have to be on a committee, and they all don't have to be at the same meeting, I don't think. But, when you start peeling the onion back and start talking about plumbers, electricians, HVAC guys, and then we've got fire suppression contractors, and then you've got developers, and then you've got folks at the Summers Taylor level, and then you've got home builders that do 2 houses a year. You've got water sewer people that may or may not be a customer of ours. You've got people that own commercial property that may have something they'd like to share with us about stormwater regs. There may be some neighborhoods that want to come in and talk about stormwater regs and the way that they're written and enforced. There's
Well,
a
and I
lot of
think
different
maybe to step back,
facets there, I think.
the spirit of the roundtable has less to do with our codes and ordinances and more to do with our process.
Yes.
And so, we're under the building code that we're under all of its guidelines, and that's about to change when the state announces whatever they're doing, and I'm told that's coming very soon. I think the state's to publish what they're doing with the 18 International Code middle of October.
They have to do something by the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I think we don't want to focus so much on that as just more about helping streamline and improve the process.
Yes.
We don't want it unwieldy, but let's just get started.
Sure.
And it may be as well, we may just, sit around a table and have a discussion. We can always have a facilitator and break people into groups and do flip charts. Let's start a conversation first, I think, and then that'll tell us where to go from there.
I think definitely this probably is a multi-part conversation because like you mentioned, new codes will be coming up that we'll need their input on as well as staff's input as to any modifications or amendments or whatever that might be ahead of us.
Because those codes are adopted to keep people safe and serve a higher purpose relative to the community's built environment. And so when we adopt those are the rules of the road. I don't think we're talking about, well, let's change the rules so much as let's make sure we're doing everything in our process to support the builders and developers who are improving our tax base.
Vice Mayor, would you be willing to work with Pete to try to get this thing organized in a format that is going to really work?
Sure.
Okay, good stuff, okay. All right, I'll be real quick because I know we want to get out of here. We've had a lot going on tonight. Let me just give you a real brief update about Bright Ridge. We had last week an update from TVA who came in and, looked at the future. In fact, did you know Michael Scalf has retired? That was his last presentation.
No, I did
was
not
to
know
us.
that.
So just in a nutshell, TVA is looking at kind of 3 pillars. One is energy, generating energy and how they might disperse some of that generation out to their distributors through solar and renewables. Their mix of energy is, coal is on the decline, and they're really seeing now viable production through renewables, and that's a good thing. Their second pillar is the environment. So they're going to be taking and looking at a number of issues on how they become a greater environmental player, reducing CO2 emissions, and, they've got some pretty aggressive goals set there. And I think for us, locally, Bright Ridge will adopt these pillars as well, so I think you will start seeing us come out more with some real environmental targets and programs that we'll be, putting in place. I'd like to see us as a city do the same thing as well. And the third is economic development. It's been great to see the changes that are going on with TVA. And one of the pieces of advice they gave us, that the electric vehicle is probably going to hit critical mass fairly in short order, in the next 10 years or so. But to get prepared, get ready, and that Bright Ridge would really begin to put that infrastructure in place for charging. So it's exciting to see it go this way, and they've really held Bright Ridge up in the work that has transformed from the Johnson City Power Board to Bright Ridge, and the what we've done there to show real leadership throughout Tennessee. Just a couple of other things. There was a regional chamber-driven meeting yesterday. There were, 100 people there, I guess. I thought it was a good meeting. The three folks, Bob Feathers, Jerry Caldwell, and Andy Dietrich led the session. Number of updates, but I do want to let you know how I introduced myself. They went around the room and introduced everybody, so you're not caught off by surprise. But hi, I'm Jenny Brock, Mayor of Johnson City, one of the great cities in the heart of the Appalachian Highlands. And so got a lot of accolades for our position. And in fact, Mr. Levine called me today, very grateful. But, my viewpoint and what I shared with people is Johnson City's going to keep its foot on the accelerator. We have to be innovative, creative. We're going to go for every kind of growth we can and be a stronger city that contributes to the region. And I think we just need to set the standard and move on. So.
And to that end, everything we enjoy as a community today is a result of those who went before us having that mentality.
Exactly.
That's what got us a medical school. That's what got us a pharmacy school. That's what turned East Tennessee. I remember in the history paper of the newspaper, the Johnson City Board of Mayor and Aldermen approving a $50,000 grant to attract a state normal college down the street. Now, I imagine the politicians of that era who gave that $50,000 to get ETSU probably caught a lot of flack. Can you imagine Johnson City without the 14,000 students and the professors and the dynamic created by having a university in our town? I can't. And all of those things are a part of that visioning process. And 30 years from now, they need to be able to look back and said they saw it and they acted on it and they did something about it.
That's right. Pete, I ran into Jeremy Ross the other day, and they want to arrange a tour for the commission and staff to go through the Fine and Performing Arts Center. So can I turn that over to Beth, maybe to work through their office to see what we can, it's tough for everybody to get together, but.
Thursdays are.
It's just got to be a Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
It's pretty simple.
So we'll let her maybe send a Google, but.
Who over there? I mean, I haven't heard anything from them about it. So.
Well, I just ran into Jeremy,
Okay.
but Anita DeAngelis.
She'd be the point of
Yeah, she'll be the
contact.
point of
Okay.
contact, and she's been wanting to do it as well, so if
Okay.
I can pass that on. When, I think you mentioned you wanted to have the first capital review of the capital budget review before Christmas?
Yes.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask the commissioners, from last year, kind of how we flipped through it, and everybody was going through it with their eyes crossed. Is there a different format that you would like to have this capital presentation and so it makes more sense to us.
I really like listening to Pete say ladder truck, pumper truck, ladder truck, ladder truck.
School bus, school bus.
And maybe as some sort of variance report as to where we drill down, or if there's something significant that we need to look at. Because a lot of those are pretty, like, the fire and transit, we kind of know what those are. So if we're making a huge swing like we did with the buses or whatever, that might be. But if it's kind of set in motion that, it's in place and it's consistent on an annual basis of replacement or whatever, I don't know.
Well, I want you to think about it, because, we get a big notebook and we just kind of flip through page after page, and that may be the only way to do it.
Can I give you the abbreviated Cliff Notes version right now? You've got usually $1 million cash to do equipment replacement. We really need about $3 million a year cash to do equipment replacement. So we do the juggling act, do what we can. This body has mentioned in the past wanting to do the Knob Creek Road project, to do diamond and rectangle fields at Wing Deer Park and West Walnut Street.
Comma, and
25,
West Walnut Street,
35.
no diamonds and rectangles on
On
West
West
Walnut
Walnut.
Street. Okay.
37, 47. Those three projects are gonna be somewhere between $50 and $75 million if you do all three of those projects. So to boil this thing down to the major components, you need to look at prioritizing those three projects, because that's gonna tie up the vast majority of your ability to borrow money and build projects. And I haven't mentioned yet that we've got the PEP scheduled out to do the 3 elementary school additions. We can take care of that, okay? You've still got about 300 to 400 elementary school seats, 200 to 400 elementary school seats somewhere that you're gonna have to build. We may or may not get some help from Washington County, so you've got to plan for the worst-case scenario, I think. So you've got some money there. And if our school system continues to grow as it has historically, somewhere out there in the 6 to 10 year window out, somebody's going to sit up here and make a decision about building yet another elementary school, because you're going to be out of room at the elementary school level. And 10 years out will not be beyond when your debt for those 3 previously mentioned big ticket projects has passed. So if you want to boil it down to the major building blocks, that pretty well sums up your CIP for the next 5 years.
Well,
There's existing.
So we're done.
And that was it down quite.
No, I don't mean to take the wind out. I'm just saying this.
No, that's good.
Those are the major building blocks that we really need to think about most, because that's really going to drive your financial direction going forward. I can't regurgitate the correct numbers off the top of my head. The good news is you've got a bunch of debt rolling off in the next 3 or 4 or 5 fiscal years, which is going to give you a lot of flexibility to accomplish a lot of those projects without any adjustment in tax rates. I mean, you're really blessed to be sitting here at an opportune time in terms of debt roll-off. But you don't have enough debt roll-off to take care of all those projects. We're going to have to prioritize and put together a careful timeline to get everything done. And of course, when we review the CIP, it's always the time of the year that we look and say, okay, last year or 2 years ago, Project X was mission critical. The world was going to end if we didn't get this funded. And 2 years later, it's like, we've been 2 years and done okay without that. We might be able to dial that back a little bit or not do it. The demand's not there that used to be there. It's that time of year to review your past priorities and see if it's still the same.
One other thing I'd like to toss out as a subject that came up this morning when we were all together to tour the A.O. Smith facility. They talked about one of their local challenges being the risk of flooding in their facility. That had obviously improved through the stormwater abatement that's been done at King Commons and Founders Park. We've pretty well tapped out the capacity of the stormwater fee, if I'm not mistaken. And yet we still have issues relative to stormwater that very much could be addressed. And so I realize that's not specific to CIP, but it would be an element of a CIP. And so I think
we will have you an update, a report, a proposal, whatever, in 2 weeks. Yes,
So
sir.
when we're meeting about CIP, or are we doing that?
No, this is just here's where we are with stormwater projects, and here are other projects identified that we're going to need to address, and we can match up funding opportunities with needs and give you all an update on that and let you see what direction we need to go there.
because of course there's a strong stormwater component to the West Walnut project too.
Yes, sir. Serious.
Well, I think what we've seen with the stormwater projects that we've done in the downtown area to date, a tremendous return on investment. I mean, it has been the catalyst that has changed everything in redevelopment downtown.
It has.
So I think we need to look carefully at it, and we still have, as Vice Mayor says, I mean, we have a lot of other needs in that area, and I think if we do anything, we look at how we can enhance that and do some additional work and hopefully have that same kind of return. We need growth, and we need to give people a great place to put their businesses, so we'll do that.
Can I say two other things
Sure.
real quick?
Mhm.
In your packet is your end of the fiscal year financials. Those are unaudited numbers, so they will change. Not they will likely change. They will change from here to the audit, but that is the same level of detail that you get on a monthly basis. You'll notice we finished over budget on revenues and under budget on expenditures, so it was a very good year. To this point, we look really good, much better than I thought we would last March. So good job by all. The department heads did a great job of controlling costs this year. The other thing is the PBA was charged with doing the Millennium Park project. And now that the Millennium Center is the property of the university and the Millennium Park is built out, they're an extraordinarily great resource without a mission right now. And I would suggest to you that a mission that would be worthy of their efforts, and I've spoken with them about their interest in doing this, it would be to turn the 30 acres where the National Guard Armory was over to the PBA, along with the redevelopment of what was Optimus Park, over to the Public Building Authority for their direction and guidance. They've got a good track record of the development of the Millennium Park over time, and they've got an interest in taking that on as a project if you're so willing to assign them that project. And I think
A
that
little bit like what JCDA did with MedTech Park years ago, or?
JCDA was involved in the concept.
Right.
I guess what I'm envisioning is concept, yes, but equally or more importantly would actually be the development and the build out and getting a master plan put together, a good land use going forward, a mission for how that property could best serve the community. It's in a very strategic location in terms of plugging into the medical community, the education community, the combined opportunities for research that have funding available at this point in time. But that would just be a really good project, and we need some group that is their primary mission and that has the expertise and the willingness to stay focused on taking that to its fullest and highest potential. I think, this conversation about what direction do we need to be going, strategic planning, however you want to describe it, I think we can all immediately agree that two of the most important legs of our three-legged stool are the medical community and the education community. And that is strategically located to accommodate the growth of those industries and to also potentially be involved in some entrepreneurship and some startup businesses, some research collaboration. I think that's going to be a very important piece of this community moving forward, and that group of people is a great resource with proven track record.
I think it's certainly worthy of consideration. Plus, they have some resources as well. So,
Yes, ma'am.
how do you want to proceed with that?
You could give staff direction at this meeting. We could do a resolution at the next meeting. I realize I hit all four of y'all with this cold this evening. It isn't something that we've talked about previously. Think about it for a couple of weeks and give me some direction at the next meeting is probably what I would
would be real
recommend.
helpful for me would be if you just kind of do a one-pager and list what you think the specifications of the work that they would be doing and how it would work.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, do we turn over the property to the PBA? I mean, do they take ownership of it? So just all the details of how it would
Yes,
work.
ma'am.
And do we return, because we took the post office revenue back into the general fund, did we not?
Correct. Yes.
So a part of their revenue stream is now
All
gone.
all of their revenue stream is now back.
Now
Yes.
it is, once they closed on Lot 8 or whatever it
Yes.
was. But, okay.
Yes. They have, round number, about $900,000 in the bank.
Along with the white paper or whatever, or summation, you may want to bring a draft of a resolution along with.
Yes, be glad to.
The other big item too that I kept thinking about the PBA, we kind of talked about it and I backed off a little bit more, but we need to figure out how we're going to do this. And that's parking, downtown parking. We need to get a plan together. I think we were all impressed with what we saw down in Chattanooga. And I don't know if it'd be worthwhile or not, but to get, I forget their director of their parking program down there, maybe bring him up here, let him look at what we have and, come up with a recommendation of how we could set this up. With the increase of residential in the downtown area, there has to be some kind of solution. And of course, theirs is they have paid parking, and we may need to consider that. That's the only way you can kind of control the flow of traffic and parking downtown.
Vice Mayor, is there any update with regards to the JCDA and any projects they're working on?
Well, one is the elevator on the outside of the parking structure that we have, and that would add about 300 some spots.
Where are they in that process?
They had a preliminary design that was shown to the JCDA perhaps a month before last. Because what happens now is you can get in and you can go down the steps on the outside of the building, but when you come back to get to your car, you have to walk up the parking garage because the elevator is inside the building, which is not accessible. So they were working on plans. I was under the impression that they thought they would have design drawings that they could put out to bid late this fall. And then it wouldn't be, apparently the design is sort of metal and modular components, so it would be a fairly quick build-out once they got it awarded, assuming that the contract, it may take them 45 days to start, but I think it would go up pretty quickly once they did. So probably sometime early part of next year, best case scenario.
I just had a couple of other things. Great to see that house get moved at Municipal Hills. That was pretty impressive when you saw that, so thanks to Mr. Hawk on that.
Redefining mobile home?
Just as, just an update, we've been working, Phil Penzola has been working on this to create out by the Rotary Pavilion on the Tweetsie Trail, kind of a memorial area for Ralph. And I think the decking area is finished. We're just simply waiting on the sign, and the sign will be similar to the signs that are already on the Tweetsie Trail. Deborah had provided a write-up that we all kind of worked on and a picture of Ralph. And so I would suspect maybe in November that we may have an unveiling of that. So we'll get that figured out and go out and honor our dear friend who we still miss every day. So I think that's my list. Thank you all. Anything else from anybody?
All I would say before we adjourn is Oscar Baumgardner has stayed through the whole meeting.
You need for us to sign anything.
Exactly. So points to him.
Okay.
So,
Bucks are playing on Saturday. I think they've
Wofford.
invited the commission to come and attend, and hope to see everybody there.
Wofford at 3:30.
Yeah.
And not that I'm excited about it, but, Buck basketball starts in about 27 days. Not that anybody's counting.
But before that, on Friday night, is my ETSU girls women's soccer. My awesome granddaughter playing again, so they're doing good. So there's many games we can go to if need be.
And I don't know if, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, save me if I get in real big trouble, Commissioner Calhoun. But I was talking.
You're on your own.
I was talking to Coach Forbes this afternoon, and he was telling me that they're having an open practice this Saturday at 11 over in the CPA. So if you're over there tailgating and wanted to get a little flavor of Buck basketball coming up, you might swing through the CPA.
Really? Is Freedom Hall ready to go?
The electric work, all that stuff's moved, yes. It is.
We have some retirements over there. When is that taking place?
February, March, yes, sir.
Probably a good time to update, maybe after the first of the year. What's going to happen?
Ms. Chamness has announced that she will be retiring February or March, and we have already advertised the position, hopefully have somebody on board by the end of the calendar year so they can work alongside her for a couple of months and get accustomed to the new surroundings. And I can't give you any kind of update on what kind of response we've got to this point, but we've also got solid waste director position posted. Ms. Harsh is going to retire in April. So we've got a couple of department heads that are retiring, and positions are posted and advertised.
I did go to the golf advisory committee meeting yesterday, and we're up about 600 rounds, 550 or so rounds of golf over last year. So our investments over there and having a new golf pro, I think, are beginning to pay off.
And not to just drag this out forever.
oh, you're well past that.
The Liberty Bell project is catching up nicely. It's not wishing the farming community any ill will, but boy, if it stayed dry for another 2 or 3 weeks, they'd be sitting pretty up there. They've got the initial roof deck over the gym, and they're getting close to getting the block walls up to the roof deck height to where 2 or 3, 4 more weeks, boy, they'd have a dried-in gymnasium to work in all winter. It'd be good.
Good stuff. Anything else? All right, meeting adjourned.
Hey, Larry.